Hello and welcome to Orkin's Lair. My name's Kurt, and I'm going to run you guys through a nice little tool that I've found for my campaigns that I use very regularly. Currently, as you can see here, it is called Inkarnate, and you can find this map-making tool at inkarnate.com. It's a free beta, and they just put out an update, which there's a lot of cool things here. So if you're new to making maps for campaigns or just new to campaigns altogether, I highly recommend this. It is the most simplest tool you ever need to use, and it can make very detailed worlds very quickly. So let me just run you through some of mine so you can see. So when you open this up, it gives you the ability to create, edit, or delete. Obviously, we won't want to be deleting anything. The edit tools, you just select one of the ones that you've already created, and you can edit it. So we'll go ahead and look here, and I will go to this one. Okay, so now we can see that the map here has been rendered. So let me go ahead and I will just kind of briefly run you through this. So as you can see, different landscapes. We have mountains, we have ice, snowy fields, forests, volcanoes. There's pretty much everything that you can possibly think of for any type of campaign or map that you're wanting to build. So this continent is currently one that I've been working on with a few groups of mine. So let me just go ahead and I'll run you through just the basics on the left-hand side here. We have, this is the sculpture tool, so you're able to edit out or add in any land. So currently, this water I actually added in, so I am simply subtracting it. Now if I'd be adding it back, it's just going to go like that. Simple as can be. You can do it in a block, hex. You can hex grid it if you need to print these out for any type of 1-inch hex boards. And the great thing about it too is that these tiles and everything that you're making, you can adjust. So even if you want to make something that's close up for kind of your battle maps, completely able to do that as well. And they also come with a hex grid. So in case you're using different types of games, you can build your maps throughout with this hex. So let me go back to adding this in. Again, lots of sizing tools, so it gives you a good overlay of how big or how small you want to start editing things out. Go ahead and subtract the hex off of there. Maybe. That's okay. Won't worry about it. So, next tool, we have the texture and the brush tool. So in this, they give you lots of options again. Any type of terrain that you might be looking at, all pretty much at your fingertips. Even ones that are strange colors, you can add those in. So let's say in your campaign, one of your forests decided to be burned down by the party. So you can add, a lava effect in there. Make it small. Let's say it was this little one. So you can start adding in maybe some details around there. If you want some fire effect, maybe we'll go with a yellow. Maybe you can make that smaller. That one's not coming in very clear. Okay, bad example. Let's just say that a dam has broken somewhere, maybe this lake, and a flood of water has created a new river that flows south. So all you need to do, again, you just cursor, take that, boom, done. You have a river. Again, you can do it within these. You can start blocking out things or hexing them if you want. Obviously, I'm not going to save this map because the one drawback of this tool that I found is that they did not add an undo button. So be very careful when saving because unfortunately there's no way to go back, and you might spend some extra time fixing some things that you may have already have done over. So next one, you have the icons. So you can place an icon, which is what it defaults to. The selector tool you click on separately, that way you can actually grab one of the ones that you currently want to move around. Once it's selected, you're free to drag, drop, make bigger if you want. You even can push it to the back, to the front. One thing that I have done, and I haven't seen too many other people do it, so it's one thing I want to definitely point out to others, is that these objects, they can layer pretty well to make some interesting terrain. So instead of just putting a town or, let's say, a castle, maybe you want to make it a, giant fortress. You can easily go in, have all these options to look at. I like to use the bridge tower. I'll just put it over here for now. And I like to stack something else on top of it. Let's say the temple. Maybe we need to make this a little bigger. And just drop the temple, drag it over. Make that a little bigger. Oh, accidentally put that there. No problem. You just go back, select it, and then I like to push that layer to the front. See how that looks? I think it looked better in the back. So we'll just push it back. There we go. And you can layer that as many as you want. If you want to, say, what would be another good layer to it? Towers. You can always throw some towers in on the side. Again, just get kind of creative with it. You can definitely create some pretty interesting custom terrain for yourself. There we go. Now it's a huge fortress in the middle of apparently nowhere. So on to the next part. Aside from that, one of the new things they did add, which is pretty cool, is the ability to add in your own objects. Now, if you can find ones that have already been cropped out, then you can push those in here, and they pretty much will act just like this tower I just put in there. They'll be completely transparent backgrounds, and they'll fall into place. Now, unfortunately, I haven't messed around with a lot of the customizing ones, but I did find this one just to kind of use as an example here, but obviously that's way too big, so we'll just say that Tiamat or Takasis has taken over that island there. But again, if this was something that was transparent, it would show up much nicer on your map. You can push it to the front, gets rid of all those trees that were in the area there. So, speaking of trees, so this leads us to the pattern tool, which is where you'll see a lot of the trees, mountains. I'll just show you here. So we have mountain ranges, trees, autumn trees, palm trees, snow-covered trees, pine trees, swamp trees, and dead trees. Now these go in pretty interesting ways. Again, you can resize them if you want to start making, and if you notice there, they actually start randomizing. So if you drag, they'll start making different designs here and there. Now you can resize if you need to make some smaller adjustments, kind of get into cracks there a bit. And I apologize, I'm completely messing up my map here, so it's going to look like a hot mess. So actually, what I'll do, let me go ahead and I'll show you some of these things in a, we'll make a new map together. So I'll go back to maps, and it'll say exit will destroy any unsaved changes. Pretty sure I don't want to save any of my changes to my awesome map. So I'm going to say OK. Alright, let's create a new one. Alright, so as you can see, creating this new one, it gives us like an actual map background here. Now, a lot of people, they like to kind of carve into the map here and make their lands. Now, that's obviously an option, because what it ends up doing is they use that kind of grayish blue as the water. So you can start making, you know, continents. And I can clean those up and make some rougher edges around there. Make them look more, I guess, continent-like. Now, some people's maps, I think this is fine to do with, but what I've found is that I feel like the water effects that they have as textures really pop out more if you just get rid of most of this map area altogether and draw in your oceans or your seas. And you'll see that right here in a second. So what I will do, I will go ahead and make this ginormous, and I'm going to just start deleting everything. Now, I usually just delete the whole thing, but you don't have to do that. If you like to keep a little border, make it look like an official map, you can do that by all means. Now, after that's done, usually I like to say this is an ocean looking blue. Color it all in. Simple as that. And boom. That blue pops a lot more like an actual ocean should. So then, kind of just working backwards, I like to use the, let's see, I like to use the bright grasslands for normal terrain. So let's see, we'll just make, what do we want to make here? Softness needs to go down, there we go. You can adjust this as well. As you can see, it'll start like painting out more if you have it up high enough. I usually like to keep it up pretty high. That way if you dot, it kind of starts filling in gaps around it. Alright, so let's just make general shape of an island here. Alright, simple as that. Make it a little bigger, fill in the gaps. Throw grasslands in, kind of deviate some of that color from the coastline. And we have a blob of an island now. And obviously you can adjust that. Another good technique to do, since you already have the blue all over, you can simply shrink down your blue tool, start cutting in, soften it up even more, really start digging through here. Maybe make a little bit of some inlets. Start cutting this up to make it look somewhat more like an actual continent. Too many rounded edges for me here. There we go. There. That looks a lot better. Okay. So now what we can do is we want to start populating some places around here. We'll just say go with a town, put it right in the center. Alright, so again, you can adjust the size. If you feel like this is a small island and you want this to be the only town on the island, or, distance-wise, this is obviously looking like this is a very small island and this is the only town on that island. Or you can go the opposite. Now this is almost an entire continent. Easy as that. So for the sake of it, I'm just going to put it here. And now we can actually name this town. So the naming tool, again, has the same selector features. There's some fonts. They have a few different fonts you can use. Text size, you can change that. A lot of people, the default is black with a white shadow. I actually like to use the opposite. I like to use white text with a black shadow, and I'll show you why. So we'll just say this is the town of Amherst. So there we go. We have Amherst. Black, white shading. After a while, you might run into a lot of darkness, especially when you put forests, mountains, and everything in. So again, I go to color, I adjust to white, then I go to shadow, and I adjust this color to black. And there we go. Completely pops it out. Now you can place that anywhere you want. Anything that's black, any dark areas, it just pops it out way more, very easily to see. Okay, So we have Amherst here. Let's say there's a forest next to Amherst. So what I like to do, I take these trees, maybe start dotting them. You can get really heavy with them if you want to. You can even start getting bigger with them. Maybe there's bigger patches up towards there. Or you can even drag. Maybe it's super thick up the further you get away from the town. Now, if you want, you can customize the area around it. So as you can see, there's some gaps in there. But if you want this to darken up and look more like a dark forest, you can always use a different color on the terrain. Kind of gives it that nice forested area look. Same with if you were, let's say, down in the Southlands, we'll say, you know, probably have a swamp down this way. So we fill that in. Again, you can modify the edges. For simplistic sake, I'll just do it that way. And we can put in some swamp trees. So maybe spread these ones out a bit further from each other. And if you want to throw in a few dead trees, you just have to find the gaps there. There we go. There we go. So, let's look at, those trees are all the same. So if you need to move a tree around, you can even do a drag of all. Now, this is another limitation. For trees and other terrain like that, you can't move them for some reason. You can only delete them. It could become a pain, but I'm sure that's something that they're probably in the works on fixing after the beta. But for the other things, you can certainly grab a hold of multiple objects and move them all together if you wanted to. So if we want to relocate the town of Amherst to the north and whatever belongings, maybe we have a cabin in the woods there. There we go. And then all we have to do to move our text, just select it, move it up. And then they even have the ability to turn things wonky ways. If you're trying to name a forest, for instance, or a mountain range, or a sea, anything you want. That's one nice thing that they built into it. So let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, so this is the note tool. I have not taken advantage of this tool, but I could see how it benefits if you are trying to notate onto an area. So let's say, you know, you can give a description of Amherst. So Amherst, a city, a town on a deserted island with a dark secret in the woods. Beware of the cabin. So then after that, you have that. And you can close it. Now it gives you a little waypoint marker. So since I didn't actually put that over it, all you have to do, maybe, there we go. All you have to do, move it to where you want that note to be. So if you want to put it above the town, there you go. So now you'll have a town icon, and anytime you want to hover over it, and it just brings it up. Pretty useful. I haven't had a need for it since I usually print out mine, and I don't know how it prints out because I've not really had a lot of use with it. So test it out for yourselves and provide some feedback. Let me know. Alright, so grid tool. Again, this is more along the lines of turning things into a grid, and you can adjust how you'd like that grid to be. So if we want to do a square grid, then you can see there, opacity. If you don't want it there at all, you can even customize the lines again. Then you have the zoom tool. So if you need to really get in close, do an extra little bit of detailing, especially if you're working with mountains. So let's say you want to put some small mountains here. We make the range get a little bit bigger in the back. Another thing I've found, speaking of these mountains, is when they do randomize, if you get to one where you don't like it, like let's say maybe I wanted another white cliff somewhere else. Maybe I don't want this white cliff in the middle there. Easiest way to do with that, click on it, get rid of it, go back. Yep, they put another white one in there. Try that again. And maybe I'm clicking the mouse too fast. There we go. There we go. So you just got to play around with it a little bit. Tool's not perfect, but I mean, you know, I think it's a great advancement that it does randomize. So you can definitely come up with a bunch of, you know, different terrain without having to keep switching back and forth between which type of tree or which type of mountain that you really want to see there. And you can always adjust it. Something else, speaking of mountains, there is a giant mountain peak and a volcano located in the objects down here towards the bottom. And so they can actually be added on top of mountains. So if you want this to go here, boom, now we got a giant mountain peak right in the middle of all those other mountains. Push it to the front. You can even scale things around it if you needed to. Same with the volcano. You can either fit in the back between all of them, or you can bring it up to the front. Alright, we'll zoom back out, see how that looks. Alright. Again, not a great fully fleshed out island, just as an example, but a lot of fun to play around with. Everything else, you have the title and the description of your map. So this could be the Isle of the Drakes. Description, things. Then you have the save button, so we'll go ahead and save it. It'll give you the nice little die effects, very reminiscent of all the dice you would probably be using in your RPGs. And now that it's saved, if you want to actually export it into a file, and obviously here's some good ones, you can go ahead and name it as a JPEG. So let's just say map 1, save, and when we open it up, there we go. Now, as you can see, I don't see that note over top of the town that we made. So it doesn't look like those export out, but if you have this tool up in a game and you have your notes there, it would be very helpful for the group. But again, it's a little touchy, so maybe having this up during your game might not be such a great thing, because if some player or somebody accidentally, is fiddling around, they might, draw something there and then you accidentally save it. And there we go. We're going to have a big old swampland running north to south. Well, I hope this tool tutorial has been helpful for you. Feel free to check it out on your own, leave any comments below, and feel free to check out any of the other videos that I have listed out. Again, my page here is dedicated mostly towards everything RPG. I want people to learn more about different games by going to other people's content and, learning the way that I did. So, thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the flip side.